Welcome back in. Today we're going to be discussing our Week 9 top DST and kicker streaming options for the week. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We start with the defense as always. We're going to kick things off with the Bengals rostered in 31% of leagues. After coming off a strong game against the Giants where the Bengals defense put up 15 fantasy points, the Bengals got absolutely torched this week by the Eagles, losing 37-17. However, this week they get a much better matchup against the Raiders. The Raiders have allowed 2.9 sacks per game. They've been pressured on 23.3% of dropbacks, which is the highest rate in the league. The Raiders also have the second worst turnover rate, making the Bengals one of the best streaming defenses this week. Next up, let's move over to the Tennessee Titans, who are only rostered in 2% of leagues. After having two tough matchups in a row against the Bills and the Lions, the Titans get a much more favorable matchup this week against the Patriots. The Patriots offense has been better after the switch to Drake May. However, Drake May left with a concussion and will have to be monitored this week. And, by the track record of most concussions, we typically see players miss a week. So I wouldn't expect Drake May to play this week, but we'll see. Either way, the Patriots have allowed the second most sacks per game at 3.6 and have the second highest pressure rate allowed in the league. The Titans have recorded two or more sacks in every game but one. So I do think the Titans, who only rostered in 2% of league, do make a lot of sense. And then lastly, we have the Commanders, who only rostered in 6% of leagues. The Commanders have 21 sacks and 7 takeaways on the season and now face a Giants offense that has allowed 3.1 sacks per game, which ranks 26th and the ninth highest pressure rate allowed on the season, making the Commanders one of the better streaming options as well on the week. Let's keep moving here. Let's move over to kickers. And, I wasn't expecting to talk about him again on this because last week he was rostered in too many leagues, but Austin Seibert was the most dropped kicker in week 8 for whatever reason and is now available in more than 60% of leagues. Seibert had another big day against the Bears, converting on 4 of his 5 field goals. The only miss was a 51-yard field goal in the fourth quarter. He has now scored double-digit fantasy points in 5 straight weeks. And if he was dropped, add him because he's the best kicker in the league this season. He is the number one kicker in scoring. He's also the number one kicker in fantasy points per game. Austin Seibert has been the dude. Next up is Brandon McManus, rostered 18% of leagues. Since taking over for Narveson, McManus has scored 7 and 12 fantasy points respectively. This past week, he converted all of his field goals against the Jags. McManus will continue to be a weekly streaming option as the Packers rank 13th in third down conversion rank and 7th in scoring on the season. This week, the Packers have the 7th highest applied team total against the Lions and the highest total of the week. So Brandon McManus is also another good play. Next up was Will Rker, 16%. Rker made both of his field goals and PATs for 8 fantasy points last week. Rker continues to be one of the more reliable kickers and is widely available as he's only rostered in 16% of leagues. This game checks a lot of the boxes we look for when it comes to streaming kickers. The Vikings have the second highest applied team total with 40 and a game total of 46.5 against the Colts, which is also the 6th highest of the week. So Will Rker is also another really strong option. Other options are guys like Will Lutz, who's rostered 14% of leagues. He has converted 9 field goals of 40-plus yards. Now gets a favorable matchup against the Ravens. And then lastly, you got Jake Bates, who's rostered in 35% of leagues. And it can be frustrating at times just because Dan Campbell will go for it, but he has been a decent the last few weeks, scoring 19, 8, and 12 fantasy points the last 3 weeks. With one of the highest game totals of the week, Jake Bates is another option you can look for as well for the Lions. So that being said, be sure to let us know in the comments section below if you have any questions, maybe some kicker questions, defense questions, who you look to stream, who should drop. Let us know in the comment section below. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.